Welcome to BeebeFlicks, our twice monthly show where we talk about what we've been watching. I'm a little out of practice because we took some time off because it's the summer, but we're back now. And today, my name is Brigid. I'm from the reference department, and today I'm joined by Jeff from the reference department, Karen from the reference department, and our assistant director, Jackie. All right, so we're going to talk about what we've been watching. So the first, I'm going to start, and I'm going to recommend the brand new Netflix show, The Babysitters Club.
Oh.
It's delightful. So it's an adaptation of the beloved book series, The Babysitters Club. I'm sure many people have read those either as kids, if you're older, or I know they're quite popular in the graphic novel form now. So it's a show for the whole family. It's very bright and colorful. Oh, it's such a refreshing piece of family entertainment that is, I guess the word I would use is wholesome, but not cloying or
it's not cloying.
Oh yeah, it's not. It's just sweet, and it's about friendship, and it's and it's progressive also in way. It's just a very wonderful look at being a girl in middle school. Also, I love The Babysitters Club.
It's very true to the books. I thought that the casting was spot on.
The casting is incredible. And I didn't know, I think they're basically all newcomers who are playing the girls and the girls in the Babysitter Club. I've never seen any of them in anything before. They're very they are very much 12-year-old girls. They look the right age. They are they're very diverse. Also, obviously the books have diversity in them, particularly Claudia, who is Japanese American, but several other of the girls are also not white, are cast not white in the show, which is nice. And in the same way, the books are each one of the members of the club and an activity, and then they're sort of narrated by them. So if you've read Babysitter's Club, you know that it's they start with my name is Claudia, and I'm the vice president of the Babysitters Club. Now my friends are Christy, who likes sports, and Marianne, who's smart, and and they're very much the same. Yeah, they're very the same. So each one is narrated by a different member. So they have voiceover so it recreates that feeling from the books, and it really is taking storylines from the books but adapting them to the modern day. It is set in the present day, whereas the books were obviously written in the late 80s and the early 90s.
They did a great job adapting it too. In the books, they didn't have cell phones or social media or anything like that, and they've really kind of seamlessly woven that in, and it feels still, like I said, really true.
Yeah, I was worried because I also think now I feel we often wouldn't think that 12-year-olds should be babysitters. A lot of times people who are 12 still have babysitters now.
Oh, why not?
In a way that is not as true when the books were written, but they make it work. It makes sense.
Yeah.
There are some known faces among the parents, particularly Christy's mother is played by Alicia Silverstone from Clueless. So she plays Christy's mom.
Oh yeah.
Wait, the mother?
Yeah. She does.
Yep, she's a mom of high schoals because they're
high schoolers,
older brothers as well. Yeah, so that's also a connection to the past in there. It really is for everyone. I think it's obviously kids will find a lot to enjoy about it, but adults will as well. It's only 10 episodes long, and they're a half hour long, which I think is the perfect length for sort of the amount of stories that they're telling. So you will probably watch it really fast. And I will warn you, I cried, I think, in most of the episodes. Yeah, so just a little warning that it is emotional. I'm trying, is there anything else that I wanted to say? Yeah. Oh, and if you watch it and you enjoy it, this is just there's a little bonus that Netflix made, which is a very short documentary. It's only about 15 minutes long, called The Claudia Kishi Club, where they interviewed various Asian American artists and creatives about the sort of impact of Claudia Kishi on them when they were growing up, because there weren't that many Asian American characters in film and television. So it's kind of the inspiration for them. And one of the people they interview is actually makes the Babysitters Club television show now.
Oh, cool.
Yes, one of them is the producer, and another one, there's a lot of like writers, and another one of them makes some of the graphic novels, is Gail Galligan, who has done some of the graphic novel adaptations. So it was, and it's 15 minutes long, and it was just a very sweet little look at being like the impact of this character in people's lives now. So
cool.
The Babysitters Club.
Yay, Babysitters Club. I'll have to take a look.
It was very cute.
It was
Extremely cute. And now, Jeff, I believe you have a very different topic.
We're going to take a turn.
Before I go into that, I do have to say, speaking of crying, because I mentioned this, I think, in our last one, I finally finished the last season, the final season of How to Get Away with Murder, which stars Viola Davis. And it's the same people, I guess, who did Scandal.
Oh, yeah.
So it's similar in style, but anyway, I loved that show. It was a real guilty pleasure for me, but a guilty pleasure that was even better because it was actually really well done.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, oh, should I try that? And then I was like, yeah.
It looks kind of, it looks soap opera-ish, and it is. But
no, but that's what you're looking for.
But it's really fast-paced, and like every episode is just a cliffhanger where you're up until 3 a.m. because you can't stop finding out what happens next. But I won't go into any details on it, but I have to say that the very last episode where they kind of wrapped everything up, I was crying like a baby. It was
all right. Well, that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
I like that. I'll also say Viola Davis is on the July-August cover of Vanity Fair, which just came out. They put it on the internet, and this is one of the most beautiful pictures I've ever seen of anyone. So recommend going to look for that, because this looks gorgeous.
It's really, she is so superb in it. But anyway, the other things that I have been watching, but I'm not talking about them today, but I'll tease them for the next time, because by the next time we do this, I will have seen them. We're about halfway through Stateless, which is the project that Cate Blanchett did. It's only, I think, 6 episodes, and she's in it, but she also was the executive producer, and takes place in Australia, and it's all about immigration and classes, structures and stuff, and it's really well done, and it stars an actress who I forget her name, but she was in the TV version of The Handmaid's Tale, with the one with Elizabeth Moss. She's another one of the actresses in that, and so I'll be able to talk about that when we finish it. And I will also next time talk about Dark, which I'm just about to start the 3rd season of. So, but what I really want to talk about today is, yes, completely different from the Babysitters Club, is a new horror film called Relic, which sounds like a monster movie, and it isn't. And you may or may not know that I actually do enjoy horror quite a bit. I read a lot of horror novels, but they have to be a specific kind. I don't do gore, I don't do violence, I don't like slasher films. For me, it's all about atmosphere and character and psychology. And there's there's been enough of them kind of along the lines of Jordan Peele and some other people who've been popular recently. It's actually starting to get its own name, and they're calling it the new horror, which there have been a bunch of really well done horror films in the past few years that are really focusing not on blood and jump scares and all that kind of stuff, but on creepy atmosphere and the psychology of characters dealing with difficult situations. But they happen to have horror as the framing theme in which the action takes place. So this Relic just came out this past month, and the reviews have been superb. I think it's got like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. And it is Australian. It takes place in the sort of creepy woods just outside of Melbourne, in the forest. And most of the film is basically only 3, there's a couple of extraneous characters, but primarily just 3 women. Emily Mortimer plays Kay, who is a 30-something mother. Her teenage daughter, she's probably older than that. Her teenage daughter, Sam, who's about 15, 16, and her mother, who lives in this big creepy house in the woods, whose name is Edna. And so Kay and Sam go to the house because Edna, nobody can find her. The neighbors haven't seen her, so they're worried. They discover that she's gone from the house. They can't find her anywhere. The police organize a search in the woods. And that's the basic premise of the film. The creepy part is that 3 days later, when they're frantic, because this is an elderly woman who's at least in her 70s, if not older, just shows up again. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, she is back in the kitchen, like as if everything is fine. But she's not quite the same. And the thing I think that makes this such an effective film is that for probably the first 2/3 of the film, there's not even a hint of anything supernatural. This is an elderly woman who lives alone in a big old house. The family's worried about her. Should she be in a assisted living facility? She's starting to lose, she doesn't have dementia, but she's forgetful. So there's all these strange things that are going on and questions that you're not sure, is it just Edna getting older or is something going on? And they do a superb job of having an elderly mother, 40-ish mother, and her teenage daughter. There's these three women who are all coming together with different agendas and different perspectives on the same issues. Mm-hmm. So the psychology of the three women dealing with each other in this hothouse environment is just incredibly powerful. And it's all done so subtly. There's no, like I said, there's no gore, there's no violence. It's just creepy. I won't tell you any more than that because the last roughly half hour of the film is just mind-blowing in a totally different direction and very scary. And the last scene it'll stick with you for a very long time. You will be picturing it in your mind for days afterwards. There's no monsters, there's no gore, it's all just creepy.
So that's even scarier than
Yeah.
monsters and gore. I don't know. I mean, at first I was...
And this is why I like this kind of film, because I find it, I say I like it in the sense that I find it more effectively scary because it's believable.
Right. But do you like to be scared?
I do.
Okay.
And being scared of Godzilla is kind of silly because you're only scared while you're watching it and it's not real. The kind of film where you could imagine this kind of thing happening is very disturbing. Like I said, there's no violence. There's some pretty upsetting imagery in it, but if you don't do violence and blood and that kind of thing. But I just found it such an incredibly effective film. And one of the things that I thought they did the best job of is they totally have to give an award to the sound people, because not just there's some music, but actually just the sounds, the way the rain drips in this forest. There's a scene where the three characters in turn are brushing their teeth in front of the mirror, and it's terrifying. But just the way they do, like the sound of the toothbrush hitting the glass, and like everything is like on edge.
Jarring, yeah.
And it's funny, Brigid and I were emailing about this earlier, that there is actually some interesting discussion going on now about how in the midst of the pandemic, people are turning to horror. And there's some interesting psychological reasons why people actually find that.
Because then you can say, at least it's not like this.
They've done studies that horror fans are, like, the people who identify as horror fans are like psychologically holding up better in this time, like compared to how other people, because they're like prepared.
Alyssa described it. I thought Alyssa described it really well because she reads horror and she was talking about books, but it's the same idea. She's like, I can put all my anxiety there instead of in real life. And
in real life.
That's such a great way to describe it, and it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, and that's why that's why I like horror as well, but I do like a horror that kind of closes. I don't, because then it's one of the reasons why I read fewer horror books but watch more horror movies, because the movie is over and it's done. But if I'm still reading the book, well, then that thing can still get me. It's not finished yet.
Yeah, we all have our different ways of dealing.
It kind of reminds me of, like, anytime I find myself feeling my family is dysfunctional, I just watch a Woody Allen movie, and then like that.
I feel like my family's fine.
We're fine. We're normal.
But I guess I would recommend this for if you liked Get Out by Jordan Peele or that kind of thing, where actually his have been much more violent than this. This is more creepy, and it's definitely it's a haunted house story, and it's really, really well done.
Well.
Oh, and I didn't mention that you can get it on. Right now, you can stream it. You can rent it streaming from Amazon, YouTube Video, Apple TV, and Google Play. Those are the 4 places you can get it now.
Okay. Well, now Karen's up, and I think we're taking another
turn.
Sharp turn.
We're going all zigzaggy.
Yeah, all zigzaggy today. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little late to the party with this one, obviously, because I think Brigid told me about this show like a year or 2 ago. I don't know, when was it, Brigid? It was a long time ago. But I'm talking The Good Place, which is a comedy. And I'm always wary of comedy because I'm usually disappointed by it. I'm very picky. And so on top of Brigid's recommendation, I got a certain 17-year-old that I know and trust was recommending it highly. And even then I was skeptical because he told me, it's called The Good Place, and the good place is heaven. And I was like, heaven themed things, they just, like, I don't know, they just, I want to run screaming. I think it's maybe a child of the 70s or something, when all those things like Heaven Can Wait and all those George, what was his name? George
Heaven's Gate, wasn't that?
Oh God.
Burns. Yeah, all the Oh God films and all that stuff. It's like, I don't know if I can deal with any more heaven. But anyway, I'm totally a convert, and that's probably why it took me so long to get to it. But it checks all the boxes for me in comedy. The premise is basically that Eleanor Shellstrop, who is played by Kristen Bell, wakes up and is told that she's dead, but she's in the good place. And so of course she's, wicked excited at the beginning, and she's taking around this magical little kingdom and stuff. And then she starts to realize pretty quickly that it's all a huge mistake and that she's not supposed to be there. So she does kind of what any good, as she calls herself, Arizona trash bag would do, and she tries to cover it up because she doesn't want anyone to know that she's not supposed to be there. And then to do that, she enlists the help of, because when you go to the good place, you get a soulmate, and it's like, the true bonding of the souls that you never found before. And so she goes to her soulmate Chidi, who is a recently deceased moral philosophy professor. And of course, he feels
so good.
bound to be a good Samaritan and help her, because that's what he does as a moral philosophy professor. And so they try to cover it up. And then you add these other characters into the mix. There's like name dropping international socialite Tani, and she's raised billions of dollars for charity, but you're also kind of wondering, should she really be here? Because then there's Jason, who's a street dancer from Jacksonville, Florida, who is really not at all the brightest bulb in the entire case. And he is, oh yeah, he's awesome. He's so good. And then you add to that Ted Danson, who plays Michael, who is the architect of this place, right? And he's kind of, I don't know, I always write off Ted Danson And I really, every time I see him again, I realize that I shouldn't, and especially in this. Like, he's way better. He's way more range than you remember Ted Danson ever having if you watch Cheers or whatever. Oh, and then there's the omniscient not robot called Janet, who is fantastic. Janet is amazing, and she develops as a character, not character, through the whole thing as well. So you put all these people together, mix them up, and it's like this perfect test of all the boundaries of what it means to be a good person. That's essentially what the show is about, right? So there's actually this underlying thing of moral philosophy to the whole thing, which sounds like really like that might send a lot of other people running in a different direction, but it's actually what gives it a lot of depth. So it's kind of like one part goofball comedy, one part social satire, and then one part a philosophy lesson, but that you kind of don't really notice necessarily. Well, you do. Anyway, you could probably go back and analyze every single episode and like write a dissertation on it, like because each one takes on like a different philosophical question about what it means.
And they have philosophical advisors, like they have people who are moral philosophers.
Yeah.
Have come in and explained to the writer's room and the creator like what different concepts were, so that they could use them and display and show them in the show in a way that would make sense to people. And it's very interesting. There's I will say there's a podcast which is hosted by a frequent guest star, Mark Evan Jackson, who, depending on where he plays a character named Sean, who is on the show.
Yep.
And he hosts a podcast called The Good Place, the podcast, which has cast members, writers, the creator Michael Schur comes on, and they talk about all of these things, and they often talk about what the concepts were that they were doing and the kinds of the things. And a thing that you found repeatedly in like writers, especially, but also the actors, is that they would say that like being on this show made them try to be a better person, like to think about their place in the world in a way that is different than they started.
Right, which is ultimately what they're kind of trying to do through in different ways and in all these wildly different scenarios, because they keep changing it up. There's 4 seasons. 3 of them are on Netflix, by the way. The last one I haven't been able to watch yet because it's on NBC, and I can't get to how you can't get to the first episodes after they've gone by a certain amount of time. So I don't want to ruin it by just watching the ends. But in every season, and even within the seasons, there's constantly these twists and turns that shake up the entire scenario. You think, how can you make that kind of premise last for 4 seasons and make it good the whole time? And they do it. I mean, they do really an amazing job of it. So I would highly recommend as a diversion and a little bit of a lesson.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I watched all of it, so
I remember. Now I remember you recommended it.
All right, so now Jackie, what did
you
watch?
First side note, Mark Evan Jackson that you just mentioned, crossover, plays the father of Marianne on The Babysitter's Club, which was very jarring.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Sean to the father, that's wild.
Yeah. So when he came on, I was like, whoa.
It's funny. This is funny to me because I knew him way before he was ever on a Michael Schur TV show, because he is a beloved member of a podcast, of a fiction podcast that I listen to, like that's like a comedy podcast. And I had always so strongly associated him with that whenever he shows up as a person, I'm like, whoa, that's not what I think you look like, because the character that he plays is very different than anyone else he plays when he's a person, when he's fully himself. So
yeah, it was because obviously on The Good Place, he's not a good guy. And then he was the dad, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, you know what I didn't say was that the rest of the cast is fantastic as well. And like, I just love, every one of them is, they've come up with these kind of stereotype characters, but
there's some great cameos. Maya Rudolph is great.
She's awesome.
She's so funny.
She's so good. Yeah.
So, well, I'm gonna drag you all back down again. I have been watching and it's only 4 episodes in, I think, on HBO, Perry Mason, which is, I didn't read the books, so I know their books, and I vaguely remember the show from whenever that was,
Way
yonder. Way back yonder.
That's older than us too.
It's very old. Yeah. So
My mother used
but I had but I had not, I didn't really know the details, and this is not what I thought it was like. It is very, very dark. It's very noir in the 30s. Everyone's poor and sad. And, oh, sorry, my dog might just freak out. I'm in the wilderness. So it stars Matthew Rhys from The Americans, and he's excellent. He's it feels like a similar character.
I was gonna
to
say,
The Americans.
like
he's kind of
the dark
he's one of
detective
our top-
fellow.
Yeah, he's one of our top sad men. I think it's
Sad
because
men.
he's Welsh, because he just is one of our top sad men currently.
Yeah, he's very good at being sad, and he's excellent in this. And he, the way my husband described it is, he's kind of winky without being winky. Like there's a lot of lines where you feel like a lesser actor would be like, like wink at the camera. Like, I don't know, but he's so good that you kind of feel like he's, I don't know, kind of being snarky, and like it's a little bit like it kind of lightens it in a way, which is very hard to do because the show is, like I said, very, very dark. And so he's, I think in the sorry, dog. Greta, come here. So I had remembered him from the show as being a lawyer, and I don't know, I actually have not looked this up. I don't know if I'm wrong or if this is like the before, but in the show, this show, he's a private investigator, and he's kind of down on his luck, like something. He's clearly either recently, or he's divorced, and he has a son that he never sees. He lives on what is clearly his family's like dairy farm, and it's totally dilapidated. It's like falling apart, and there's someone nearby who owns the land nearby and wants to buy it and put in an airstrip, and for some reason he's fighting this, and I'm not clear why. If he's just like clinging to it because it's his house, like there's no reason to cling to it. It's like he has like 2 sad cows, and like so he ends up working on this. From what I can tell, the whole season is one mystery. It's not like individual. It's one crime. So far, there's been 4 episodes, and it's all the same crime. I don't know, Brigid, do you know how many episodes it's going to be?
I think it's 8, but
8?
I'm not sure for sure.
That was kind of what I thought. But there's some other good. It's really well acted by pretty much everyone. I had not heard of some of the people, but John Lithgow's in it. He plays kind of a seeming kind of aging attorney that he ends up hooking up with, and gets him involved in this case that's really famous, or become really famous, because it involves red flag here. It does involve a child dying, like right away. But everybody else seems really pretty well acted, and I don't know Brigid, do you know the woman's name who plays the kind of preacher? I know she's relatively famous.
Oh, so that is Tatiana Maslany, who
Yes.
you watched Orphan Black. She was the main character on Orphan Black.
Yes,
so.
And she's excellent. So it's not, I mean, it's his story, but there's all these, it's this mystery that he's trying to solve, but there's all these other parts that are kind of like, there's this woman who's this kind of cultish church leader, not really clear on what her deal is. And then there's like a rich, they end up involved in this crime because he's initially hired by this wealthy man who ends up having ties to this church. It's like I said, we're only 4 episodes in, so I can't say if it's going to be a satisfying ending or what, but so far it's really good. I mean, unfortunately we're watching it like live, and so it's HBO, so it's every Sunday night, and so we don't stay up late, but you can't binge watch it. Like every time we're like, oh, let's like start the next episode. It's like, no.
That seems like such an archaic way of watching
Doesn't it?
television now.
I know. Well, when we first picked it up, it was already 2 episodes in, so we got to watch both at once. And then I was like, keep going, and he was like, I can't. We have to wait.
Although it's kind of fun having that old feeling of going, you know, it's like, oh, it's Sunday night, we get to watch whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we never do because I can't stay up that late, but
right.
but Monday nights are fun. So I'm enjoying that. My husband and I don't overlap a lot TV wise. Like there's like a select thing, like group of things that we can watch together. So when we find something, we get really into it. I'm also watching the Durrells of Corfu. He is not joining me in that.
I will join you in that. I totally want to watch that.
It's just so delightful.
What's that?
It's PBS.
It's
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
And it's over. It was 4 seasons. I think it started in 2016, 15, 16. Jeff Tanya recommended it to me. So our beloved hairdresser, Jeff and I both get our hair done at the same place. And she's delightful. And she recommended it. That's a nice diversion. It is actually based on books. It was a trilogy by Gerald Durrell.
Gerald Durrell, yeah.
He and his brother, all of their writing is just, some of it's funny, some of it's serious. It's all good.
And that's kind of how the show is too. Yeah. It's mostly pretty funny, but it's in Greece, Jeff, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it seems kind of like called a midwife-esque in tone and stakes, like.
Yeah, even the really serious stuff is like, it's fine.
That's just because I guess probably also because it aired on PBS after Call the Midwife, so I associate them in my mind.
In their mind, it's in the same vein. I mean, it's Downton, but they're poor and on an island. I mean, it's all the same feeling.
It's all the same. All the same.
Yeah.
Well, that seems nice. Who wouldn't want to go to an island for a little while?
All of us.
Watching beautiful pictures of Greece is like, yeah, you had me there. So
yeah.
I have one more little quick diversion, which we just started last night, and it's just if you're thinking about period pieces, 2008, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Eddie Redmayne, and Arterton. What's her name?
Oh, Gemma Arterton.
Gemma Arterton. I mean, there aren't there's not a better Angel Clare and Tess than those two.
I think I watched that recently because last year when we were actually like there, we were in Devon. And,
oh, that's right. You saw it.
You know, it takes place in that area.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, oh, I should reread that. So I reread the book, and I think I did watch it because I remember Eddie Redmayne. Yeah.
Perfect diversion. It's so perfectly Hardy. I did a whole class on Hardy. So, but anyway, if you need to, eye candy, beautiful scenery, all that stuff, go for that one. It's on Prime Video, Amazon Prime.
Well, I'm going to close this out with another historical drama, but it is not cheery and comforting. It is the opposite of that in many ways. So the drama that I'm going to finish with is called Kingdom. It is a Korean historical drama set in, I believe, like either the very late 16th century or the very early 17th century. It's the Joseon period in Korean history, so when they had a monarchy. And it is a historical drama, but it also has zombies. So it is
Downton Abbey then.
Yes, this is a zombie historical drama. So it follows the Crown Prince of Korea, whose name is Chang, Crown Prince Chang, who seeks, at the beginning, he wants to redeem his country from the corrupt family who have taken power from his father, who's a weak king who's currently ill with a mysterious illness and has been locked in his palace for an unspecified amount of time, and no one has seen him. So unable to see his father, Chang sets off across the country to find the last physician who treated his father and wrote some very intriguing things in the patient journal about his condition. So he's going across the country to find him. And when he finds, accompanied only by like his loyal bodyguard. And when he finds the place where this physician is, he discovers that the problems are maybe much more serious than his father's illness, because their dead have come back to life and are terrorizing the countryside. So,
Okay.
and in fact, the physician that he's gone to look for is one of these undead. So he will find no answers there. So then this pretty much all happens in the first episode. Like it starts off being like, this is sort of a normal historical drama, and then it's immediately like, wait, there's zombies. So once we get
beautiful historic costumes, right?
The costumes are amazing. I really will say, and it looks beautiful. I can't speak to accuracy because I don't know this period of Korean history, so I don't know if the costumes are accurate, but I assume they are. They're all like very interesting, very like lots of beautiful, like sumptuous royal robes, because he is royal, obviously, though he later like finds it. So it just like looks gorgeous, and everything gets covered in blood and gore. It is, as a zombie thing, it's different. Like it immediately has to not follow a lot of the cliches that you're used to from zombies, because, well, you can't have people who just shoot them in the head because nobody owns guns. It's like there's very few guns in existence, and of course none of them are automatic at all, so it's like self-loading.
It's like they gotta pack it with the powder and all that.
Yeah. So like there is a character who does use a gun in scenes, but he's the only one. So there's only one that does it, and he does, and it has to.
And it takes him 10 minutes to
Exactly. Like it's a very different. So it's a lot of like sword fighting or arrows. It looks very different. You can't have kind of like phone calls to warn people about things that are happening because there aren't any phones. So it does take longer for the infection to spread. So in some level, it's like easier to control it, but they don't, and you never have that question where people are like, why don't they know what zombies are? Because of course they don't know what zombies are. It's 16th century Korea. They've never seen a zombie movie before. So he gets some new companions when he meets up with which is a female physician who's probably played by the only person Western audience who is sort of famous outside of Korea, which is Bae Juna, who is in Sense8, the show that's on Netflix. So she's a major character, and
I loved her in Sense8.
Yeah, so she plays this female physician who is great. I will say I love her character, and a sort of secretive ex-soldier who is on like his own like parallel revenge mission, which we sort of find out later. And also, as they describe it, because you have to have this character, I feel like, in Korean dramas, which is the hapless magistrate. So he's kind of our comic relief man who is around because he is not good at fighting zombies, obviously. I really liked it. It is dark and it's very gory, but it's kind of interesting the way they use zombies. And so if you like zombies, I recommend it. If you're not a horror person who generally likes zombies, you might still like this because I think that it's doing enough sort of interesting things that you will find compelling. I always think that zombies are some of our sort of most versatile like monsters, like supernatural monsters in their metaphorical applications. Like they can be fear of the other as they are in like Night of the Living Dead, or represent like American consumerism in Dawn of the Dead, or infection. And so in this they're both like a fear of disease and also like literally the product of elite corruption. Like zombies exist because of the corrupt elites at the top of this system. And that's, so are they like revenge, but they're not taking it out only on the elites. But so it's metaphorically it's interesting as well. And obviously we all are very classy and enjoy themes and plots, and I know that that's why we watch it. But I know some people watch things because people are very attractive, so I'm gonna say it doesn't slouch in that department. Everyone on this show is beautiful.
The zombies.
It hurts.
Yeah. Some of the zombies maybe looked good before they got all undeaded. But yeah, obviously we're very classy. We watch things for themes, and that's why I gave all the themes and the meanings. But
Right.
You're not going to be
We
upset.
like to keep it high toned in this place.
You're not going to be upset with how people look in their fancy historical costumes, for instance. And I think with that, we're all done, right?
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
That'll keep you busy.
Definitely.
I am finding there is way too much stuff to watch. So every time we do one of these, I have to add to my list several things that I don't have time to catch up with.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. And
Thanks for having us.
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
See you on the next show.
Yeah. Bye.
Everyone.
Bye.